whatever the result of the mission that brought me to London, I know that I shall carry with me the pleasantest memories of my stay in the midst of the poor people of East London.
Welcome to Florida Atlantic University, to the Davie Campus. I'm Anthony Abate. I'm the Associate Provost for the Broward campuses for Florida Atlantic University, and on behalf of our President, John Kelly, and our Provost, Brett Danilowicz, I would like to welcome you all here tonight. We extend our greetings to Dr. Rajmohan Gandhi to share his insights and experience with us. And I'd also like to welcome Mayor Judy Paul from the city of Davie. Our Vice Provost, Michelle Hawkins. The Dean of the Dorothy F. Schmidt College of Arts and Letters, Michael Horswell. And our Vice President and CEO of the FAU Foundation, Danita Nias. The Peace, Justice, and Human Rights Initiative at Florida Atlantic University commemorates the anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi, who was born on this date, October 2nd, 1869. Today is International Day of Nonviolence, a tribute to Gandhi's principles of resistance without bloodshed, which may sound a bit abstract at first, until one realizes the tremendous courage it takes to absorb violence, even more so than a person that commits it. That kind of courage, the courage necessary to bring about change in society, requires a certain kind of peace that resides in one's heart and soul. I would like to thank Dr. Stephen Roper, the Executive Director of the Peace, Justice, and Human Rights Initiative, and Assistant Director Lanine Chancellor here at Florida Atlantic University for organizing this event. The initiative is a platform for promoting research, teaching, and community engagement along the themes of peace, social justice, and human rights through faculty affiliates across many disciplines here at the university. This initiative is a key component of the university's strategic plan and our commitment to the issues of global importance as well as those that impact us here in South Florida. The initiative hosts a series of events across our campuses and brings a diverse range of speakers and programming that profoundly enhance the educational experience at Florida Atlantic. For me, the first step toward peace, in my mind, begins with turning off my cell phone. So may I ask all of you to please join me in turning off our cell phones. And now, will you also please join me in giving a South Florida welcome to the Association of the Performing Arts of India, led by President Bharti Choksi, who will perform Vaishnava Janatu.
Namaste, everybody.
काच मन निश्चल राखे धन धन जननी तेरी रे वैष्णव जन तो तेने कहिए जे पीड़ पराई जानी रे વૈષ્ણવજન તો તેને કહીએ જે પીડ પરાઈ જાની રે. મોહમાયા વ્યાપે નહીં જેને દૃઢ વૈરાગ્ય જેના મન મારે. રામ નામ શું તારી રે લાગી સકલ તીરથ તેના તન મારે. વૈષ્ણવજન તો તેને કહીએ જે પીડ પરાઈ જાણી રે. વનલોભીને કપટ રહિત છે કામ ક્રોધ નિવાર્યા રે. બને નરસૈયો તેનો દર્શન કરતા કુલ એકોતેર તાર્યા રે. વૈષ્ણવજન તો તેને કહીએ જે પીડ પરાઈ જાણી રે. વૈષ્ણવજન તો તેને કહીએ.
I'll just read the meaning of what the song says, because this is in our Gujarati language and it is very short. The poet said, one who is a Vaishnava, devotee of Vishnu, knows the pains of others, does good to others without letting pride enter his mind. A Vaishnava tolerates and praises the entire world, does not speak ill of others, keep his promises, actions, and thoughts pure. Your mother is blessed indeed. A Vaishnava sees everything equally, rejects greed and avarice, respects other women as he respects his own mother. Though his tongue may tire, he will utter no untruth, never touches the property of others. A Vaishnava does not succumb to worldly attachments. He has renounced lust of all types and anger. The poet Narsi will like to see such a person by whose virtue the entire family gets salvation. He has conquered greed, deceit, passion, and anger. The sight of such a Vaishnava, says Narsi, saves a family through 71 generations. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bharti. And now, if you will help me welcome our Master of Ceremony, the Associate Director of the Peace, Justice, and Human Rights Initiative, and Associate Professor in the Department of History, Dr. Doug McEtchen.
Thank you all for being here. I'm here to introduce our speaker tonight. It's my great honor to introduce Rajmohan Gandhi, son of Devdas Gandhi, the youngest son of Mahatma Gandhi ji. A research professor at the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, Rajmohan Gandhi has been a member of the Indian Parliament. He has met Dr. Martin Luther King and has worked extensively on peace and human rights throughout his life. He is the author of over a dozen scholarly and highly engaging books. He has written about various Indian independence leaders, on the Muslim frontier Gandhi from Afghanistan, Abdul Ghaffar Khan, as well as A Tale of Two Revolts that compares the 1857 rebellion of India and the US Civil War. I teach a graduate seminar on Gandhi, and while my students have enjoyed the almost 800 pages of another of his books, I assigned this, Gandhi the Man, His People, and the Empire. They did have one criticism. Too short. After many weeks of discussion, these students were increasingly curious about Gandhi, thirsty for more knowledge about this fascinating and complex leader. And I think that's largely why we are all here tonight as well. to hear what Professor Rajmohan Gandhi will now tell us about his grandfather, which is also the theme of his latest book, Why Gandhi Still Matters, an appraisal of the Mahatma's legacy. Please join me in welcoming our honored speaker this evening.
So I must first ask whether I'm audible. Am I being heard? Is the sound system working? Thank you very much. So I want to thank all of you. I am sorry I will not take the names of all the wonderful people who have invited me, made me feel welcome, and my wife feel welcome, and who have supported this event. And I thank also everyone who has come to be present this evening. I was supposed to be here a year or two ago, and Doug, who spoke just now, and Steve and others had thought of inviting me at the time, but then Irma intervened. And so all of you were spared a talk by me at that time, but now you have to face me. So I am in southern Florida, in this wonderful place. But I also discover, since arriving here 2 or 3 days back, that I'm in a village that has the name Humankind. This village is Humankind. Because in the last 3 days, I've met people from Cuba, Trinidad, Jamaica, Barbados, Peru, Colombia, Haiti, Pakistan, India, China, Korea, plus. This is fantastic. So I am in this wonderful place in southern Florida, but I'm also in a place where the whole world is together, where humankind is together. It is a wonderful feeling. Now, some years ago, it seemed as if humanity had become global. The world had become one, that not just here in southern Florida, but the whole world was becoming one, so it seemed. So ours had become a global world, but in the last 5 or 6 years, ours has become a tribal world. From global to tribal has been our descent in recent years. So in that previous period, where we were moving towards a kind of common humanity, there was a breeze of equality, of fraternity, of sorority, of a common belonging. Now there is an assertion of privilege. Some are more equal than others. That people like me have greater rights, greater privileges in country after country. And others, no. They may be tolerated, they may have some rights, but not equal rights. And there's this idea of that the privileged group should take the country back, that there's something ominous in the air, something even allow me to say so, poisonous in the air. That some will dominate and others will have to accept their maybe second-class status. And this is true in many countries. It's true in India, I'm afraid, today. It's true in the United States in some ways. It's true in Turkey. It's true in many countries of Europe. It is a reality in many parts of the world. Which is why people recall Gandhi. Of course, today is Gandhi's birthday. By the way, I met 2 people today also who had their birthday today. So we are celebrating several birthdays. But people are recalling Gandhi because this notion that humanity was coming together and some kind of equality and sorority and fraternity was being created, that notion has been shaken in recent years. People recall Gandhi, people recall Martin Luther King Jr., and as Associate Provost Anthony Abate very kindly mentioned, or I think Doug McEachin mentioned it, I had the privilege of meeting Martin Luther King. Now, one of those pictures that went very speedily past, you may have recognized Martin Luther King. There was Roy Wilkins with him, and there is me. I'm 21, and Martin Luther King Jr. is only 27. So I was able to meet him before he became so great and famous in the world. So people recall Martin Luther King Jr., they recall Nelson Mandela. I had the privilege of meeting him. They recall Cesar Chavez. Some of you may remember him. And I had the privilege of meeting him too. The Dalai Lama, and again I had the great privilege of knowing him, and of course he is still with us. And this man whose face you have seen repeatedly in front of you, Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan, this very tall man, 6'4" and more. He and his brother stayed in our home in New Delhi when I was 10. And then he visited, he is from Pakistan and Afghanistan, or he was. Pakhtun or Pashtun, is, the word is sometimes called Pakhtun in that part of the world. Here often referred to as Pashtun. So I last met him in 1987. He died in 1988. He was 97 when I met him. He was not very well. And when I went to call on him, he was resting in his bed. He called me to sit near him, sit on the bed next to him. And he embraced me and he kissed me on the forehead. And I saw that his nose was really several inches long. This man, Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan, yes, a Muslim, a Pashtun, but what a human being. What a phenomenal figure for the unity of humankind. Some of you will, who knows here what happened, I think it was in 2001 in March in Afghanistan, the Bamiyan statue, you know, the great statues of the Buddha, which the Taliban had demolished. So when Abdul Ghaffar Khan was, he was from Pakistan, but he was in exile in Afghanistan. When he was there, when people went to visit him from India, many Hindus from India went to visit him in Kabul in Afghanistan, Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan would take them to see these Buddha statues of Bamiyan. He was so proud. He was a very devout Muslim, but he was equally proud of the pre-Islamic heritage of the Afghans and the Pashtuns. He sent his daughter when she was in her teens to England to study in the 1930s. This Pashtun leader sends his teenage daughter to study in England without her parents. He sends his son to study in the United States. Abdul Ghaffar Khan fought for independence. He was not for partition. He was not for a separate state called Pakistan. He was attacked for his stand, but he stuck to his convictions. The British put him in prison for 15 years, and the Pakistani government put him in prison for 12 years. We've heard of Mandela's 27 years in prison. Well, Ghaffar Khan also had 27 years in prison. But Ghaffar Khan was absolutely to his dying breath convinced that Hindus, Muslims, Christians, Jews, everybody could live together and should live together and respect one another. So people recall him also. Now on Gandhi. People know that, yes, he achieved India's independence. He didn't achieve it by himself. There was a great army of non-violent soldiers, and there were some people who believed in violence who too contributed to the fight for India's independence. But there was this amazing collection of people, leaders and the led, women and men, people of all backgrounds, who took part, and yes, Gandhi played the leading role, so he's credited for India's independence. But there are two other things that Gandhi achieved which people may not be aware of, and I would like to mention these things. One is how he tackled the great shame, as he called it, the great crime, as he also called it, of untouchability. You know, we use that word in India quite frequently. So when we utter that word, we don't really understand what it means, what it implies. That yes, for a long time, for hundreds of years, maybe even for longer, some in India or many in India regarded a whole section of human beings as untouchable. And Gandhi used to say that yes, slavery in the United States was a terrible thing, but Indian untouchability was worse and is worse. So Gandhi made it possible for a great many Indians to acknowledge, it was not easy, acknowledge this great shame, this great offense, this great ugliness, this great sadness. So this was his second great achievement. And of course, the Indian Constitution, or Free India's Constitution, makes untouchability, the practice of it, absolutely unlawful, punishable by law. But there was a third achievement, which I want to touch on a little bit for more seconds. When India became independent in August of 1947, partition also occurred and Pakistan was created. So the Muslim majority parts of the subcontinent, in the northwestern part and the eastern part, they were allowed to secede if they wanted to. And they formed a country called Pakistan. And many in Pakistan, the new country of Pakistan, said, we want Pakistan to be an Islamic state. And many in India said at the time, we want India to become a Hindu state. A great many people were killed. Hindus, Sikhs, Muslims were killed in very large numbers, and millions of people left one part of the subcontinent, moved to the other, especially in this area called Punjab, which is the focus of one of my studies. And many people, Hindus and Sikhs, from West Pakistan came as refugees to India, just as many Muslims left northern India and went to Pakistan as refugees. Millions of people moved in either direction. And there was this tremendous campaign that this violence has taken place. An Islamic state of Pakistan is being created, so we must have a Hindu state of India. Not a state for all. Yes, others may live here, but the Hindus will be dominant. This was a very strong notion. And just as sometimes today I mentioned that there is an ominous sense of something maybe even poisonous in the air, there was poison in the wind in India in 1947. And Gandhi and his trusted colleagues and thousands and hundreds of thousands of fellow fighters stood up to that wind. This is not sufficiently recognized, but I would suggest that even more important and a larger feat than independence, as equally important as his feat in enabling India to acknowledge the offense of untouchability, was Gandhi's success in the last year of his life to make sure that independent India will not be a Hindu state, but it will be a state for all, for Hindus, Muslims, Christians, Sikhs, Jews, Jains, Buddhists, agnostics, atheists. And when this happened, for some time, I'm now going back to the 40s, 50s, 60s, For some time, 70s, there was a notion that maybe India independent, India a nation for all, India a nation of great diversity, India a nation attempting democracy with this vast population would become another kind of United States in that part of the world and be a powerful example to the world. So India would be a hope for the world like the United States. And in more recent years, that picture has been hurt somewhat, I have to acknowledge. But I want today to ask, or to share my reflections on how is it that Gandhi was able to accomplish this at that time? How did he and his associates stand up to this poison in the wind? Now, there is no formula, no mantra, there's no sentence or a short paragraph that can explain Gandhi's secret. Gandhi had interactions with many Americans over his lifetime, beginning in South Africa when he was a young man there and he met some Americans there. He had interactions also with many African Americans. And in 1945, just as the war was ending, an African American journalist from Chicago, a man called Denton Brooks Jr., working for the Chicago Defender, he was in India, and Gandhi had been released from prison by this time. India was not yet independent. But Denton Brooks interviewed Gandhi and said, please give a message for America, and especially for the African Americans. So Gandhi gave this very famous reply that some of you may be aware of. Gandhi said, my life is my message. He had no formula. He had no text to give. He said, if you want to know what I want to convey to the world, you have to study my life. So as he said, this 800-page book is not enough. You have to study, But I want to give you a few ideas from his life so that we can understand why it was that Gandhi was able to achieve these quite remarkable results. So here is this man who's trying to lead his country to independence. The British are ruling India, and the British have, of course, cannons, they have aircraft, they have warships, they have guns. Indians are not allowed any weapons. They can find some sticks and they find some knives and daggers, but guns are not allowed to Indians. And Britain is very powerful, but the Indian people are moving forward, and taking steps towards independence. And one of the worst incidents in the British rule of India took place on April 13, 1919, in the city of Amritsar, in a garden called Jallianwala Bagh, when in 10 minutes, a British general ordered his troops, who were mostly Indian troops, to fire at a large crowd of people without ordering them to disperse, without any warning, and in 10 minutes, hundreds of people, and some people say up to 1,000, were killed. In 10 minutes. 10 minutes. It was the worst single incident in the annals of British rule over India. And this changed everything. Until that moment, many people in India thought, well, maybe some kind of association with British rule could work. But after the Jallianwala Bagh massacre, India and Indians said, we want independence. We are not going to have British rule any longer. But of course, this sentiment only achieved its results, its aims, much later in 1947. So this incident took place in April of 1919. In December of 1919, the Indian National Congress, which was the political vehicle for the freedom movement, had its annual session in this city where this killing had taken place. And I'm going to read to you from what an eyewitness at that meeting wrote later. So this man, his name is Munshi, M-U-N-S-H-I, is a very well-known figure in India, writer, who afterwards became a very prominent political figure in India. So he describes a meeting which is discussing this massacre and what to say about it. So a resolution was introduced to this meeting where it was said that, of course, we find it difficult to find words to condemn this massacre. We want the governor of this province to be removed. We want the viceroy to be replaced. We want compensation of other kinds. And then there was a sentence that said, we also deplore the disturbances that had taken place 3 days before the massacre, and disturbances in which 5 young Englishmen had been killed. So this is what Munshi witnessed at the time and wrote down later. The hearts of most of us revolted at the latter part of the resolution. This must have been Mrs. Besant's work, many thought. She was, after all, British. Now, Mrs. Besant was an Irish woman who was passionately fighting for Indian independence. But she was a white woman. So people thought that this sentence that said we deplore the killing of these 5 Englishmen was written by Mrs. Besant. She was, after all, British. One Punjab leader gave expression to the feeling rather crudely. No one born of an Indian mother, he said, could have drafted this resolution. The resolution was put to the vote, and the first part was adopted, the second part was defeated. The next day, this is Munshi continuing, the next day the president wanted the committee to reconsider the resolution, as Gandhi ji, he said, was very keen on it. There were vehement protests. Ultimately, Gandhi ji was helped to the table to move that the resolution be reconsidered. Referring to the remark that no son born of an Indian mother could have drafted the resolution, Gandhiji stated that he had considered deeply and long whether as an Indian he could have drafted the resolution, for indeed he had drafted it. But after long searching of the heart, he had come to the conclusion that only a person born of an Indian mother could have drafted it. Continues Munshi. And then he spoke as if his whole life depended upon the question. When he stopped, we were at his feet. The resolution was reconsidered and accepted in its original form. So this is how India occupied the high moral ground in 1919. I will move now to 1946-47. This is a year before India becomes independent, and sadly by this time violence is taking place between these diverse communities in India, and especially between Hindus and Muslims, and tragic violence is taking place. And one place where in September, October 46, there was very serious violence was in a place called Noakhali, now in Bangladesh, where the Muslims were in a majority and the Hindus were in a minority, and the Hindu minority was very badly treated in that area. In other parts of the subcontinent, where Hindus were in a majority, Muslims were in a minority, many Muslims were very badly treated by the majority. But this particular time, Gandhi went to this area, Noakhali, and he took a very small team with himself. Now here is the nation's leader. He's called the father of the nation by this time, the leader of the independence movement. Everybody calls him Mahatma, great soul. But he takes a very small team, he goes to this area, and he decides that he would be a simple field worker a ground level worker to bring peace and reconciliation. He walks from village to village. He walks from village to village. Over a 2-month period, he and a handful of companions halted overnight in 47 different villages. Walking from one village to the other, halting in 47 different villages. Their hosts were Hindus and Muslims. They included washermen, fishermen, cobblers, and weavers. So one of Gandhi's associates, his grandniece, wrote in her diary that these hosts, they bathe us with love. After one such stay in a humble home, Gandhi said, "The cottages of Bengal, this area, have become dearer to me than the prison-like solid walls of palaces. A house full of love such as this is superior to a place where love does not reign." Much of Gandhi's time was spent with Hindu women stricken with fear. One of his companions and translator, a professor, anthropology professor, Bose, noticed what he described as Gandhi's daily ministrations on behalf of love and the extreme tenderness with which he regarded each individual who related woes to him. Sick children in the villages, Muslim and Hindu, also commanded Gandhi's attention. He tried to help them medically. He sought to heal and to wipe tears, but he said that courage rather than consolation was what he hoped to transmit. And with the caste Hindu women, Gandhi was also frank about untouchability. Finding that the Hindu untouchables of East Bengal had been braver than the high caste Hindus in responding to attacks, Gandhi insisted that village peace committees should have the representation of the untouchables. And he warned caste Hindu women that if they continued to disown the untouchables, more sorrow would be in store. To women in a village called Chandipur, he proposed this radical step: invite a Harijan, that was the name he gave to the so-called untouchables, every day to dine with you. You may think it's a normal thing, invite somebody to dine with you. But if you're asking caste Hindu women to invite untouchables to dine with them, you know what a revolutionary idea that is. Or at least ask the Harijan to touch the food or the water before you consume it. Do penance for your sins. On 31 January 47, the Muslims of another village, Navagram, defended Gandhi's right to cite from the Quran. And in the village of Sadhurkhil, an influential Muslim, Salimullah Sahib, asked Gandhi to hold prayers on his grounds, adding that he would not mind if the Hindu verse about Rama was chanted to the clapping of hands. Now, this anthropology professor, Nirmal Kumar Bose, was a very interesting man, a scholar. He was there with Gandhi as a translator, as an interpreter, and to study Gandhi's life. He was a great scholar also of Tagore, the great poet. And he was collecting Gandhi's quotations for a future book he intended to write. So Gandhi said to him, Nirmal Bose, don't be misled by my sentences, which show me at my best. They present a picture of my aspirations, not of my achievements. So Bose then said, he quoted Tagore the poet, and Tagore said that a man should be judged by the best moments of his life, by his loftiest creations, rather than by the smallnesses of everyday life. So to this, Gandhi responded as follows, and this gives you an idea of the man Gandhi. Gandhi says to Bose, yes, that is true of the poet, for he has to bring down the light of the stars upon the earth. But for men like me, you have to measure them not by the moments of greatness in their lives, but by the amount of dust they collect on their feet in the course of life's journey. Now, there was a very interesting man who met Gandhi in Noakhali at this time. He was an American, and he was an African American. His name was Stuart Nelson. He was a dean at Howard University in Washington, D.C. And he goes to meet Gandhi in this remote village, and they have interesting conversations. And Nelson writes like this. So this is Gandhi trying to bring some peace. I wish I could learn to speak without moving my hands. So there is Gandhi trying to bring peace between Hindus and Muslims in Noakhali. And Stuart Nelson goes to meet him, and then Stuart Nelson writes like this. The 2 hours with him were packed with an inspiration which will abide with me. The impression which I bore away derived from the extraordinary spiritual and intellectual qualities which he revealed even in so short a time. Mr. Gandhi has a complete mastery over the material demands upon his life. The room could scarcely have been plainer. Then Nelson asked Gandhi, you have been talking about non-violence for the last 30 years in India. Why so much violence? Good question. So the answer Gandhi gave was like this. Gandhi said that people said they were fighting non-violently, and many of them were, but many of us harbored hatred in our hearts. See, Gandhi was saying to the Indians, ask the British to quit. Fight them, but do not hate them. Throw them out, but do not hate them. A very tough prescription. So Gandhi said, some others have also said that Gandhi's huge achievement was he removed fear from the Indian mind. India became fear-free. But Gandhi said, they accepted me when I said, fear not. They rejected me when I said, hate not. And then Gandhi said, from hating the British, it was a very simple short step to hating the Hindu or hating the Muslim, because you can't control the direction of hatred. So this was Gandhi's explanation of the violence that took place. But what is interesting is that this African American gets from Gandhi this diagnosis of why violence is taking place in India. So I will now move towards the end of Gandhi's life, some months after this. You know that on January 30, 1948, Gandhi was killed. He was killed by a group of Hindus who felt that he was more friendly than necessary to the Muslims. Why did he have to be so friendly to the Muslims? Why does he ask us to forgive them? Why does he ask us not to hate them? That's not what we like. We want independence, we want the British to go, and then we Hindus, we should rule India. And if the Muslims can leave, so much the better. But Gandhi said, India is for all. India is for all. And everyone will have equal rights. So that's why he was killed on January 30. But those who killed him on January 30 had tried to kill him 10 days earlier on January 20. They had come to his prayer meeting, his multi-faith prayer meeting, and the plan was one of them would detonate a grenade, there would be confusion, and then others would shoot into him and throw another bomb at him. But after the grenade was exploded, the rest of the plan misfired, and the others could not execute the plan, and they slipped away. But the man who threw the grenade was captured. A humble woman who saw this man exploding the grenade stood up to him very courageously. And then he was taken by the police. And so that day, on 20th January 1948, Gandhi survived. But on that day, there was this multi-faith prayer meeting where these people had gone to kill him. And at the end of the prayers, Gandhi was giving his talk, which was his custom. about half an hour of prayers from different faiths, and then Gandhi's talk, which by this time was being relayed on the government radio, because by this time India was independent and India was being run by Gandhi's followers. So his talk was being broadcast on the radio. So when the explosion took place and people in the gathering became confused and started getting wondering what to do. So Gandhi said to them, listen, 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 nothing has happened. All this was heard by everybody. The talk was being broadcast and Gandhi says, listen, 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 nothing has happened. So when afterwards people knew that there was a bomb incident, they sent telegrams to Gandhi. What a courageous man you are. What poise you have. We congratulate you on your bravery. So the next day, again the prayer meeting takes place. And again, Gandhi then speaks at the end. And this is what Gandhi says. Let me first deal with the bomb incident of yesterday. People have been sending me wires, telegrams, congratulating me and praising me. In fact, I deserve no congratulations. I displayed no bravery. I thought it was part of army practice somewhere. I only came to know later that it was a bomb and that it might have killed me if God had not willed it that I should live. He continues, you should not have any kind of hate against the person who was responsible for this. He had taken it for granted that I am an enemy of Hinduism. Is it not said in chapter 4 of the Gita is one of the great texts of the Hindu scripture, is it not said in chapter 4 of the Gita that whenever the wicked become too powerful and harm dharma, righteousness in society, whenever the wicked become too powerful and harm dharma, God sends someone to destroy them. The man who exploded the bomb obviously thinks that he has been sent by God to destroy me. I have not seen him, but I am told that this is what he said when questioned by the police. He was well dressed too, says Gandhi. Continues Gandhi. But if we do not like a man, does it mean that he is wicked? If he doesn't like me, does it mean that I'm wicked? If then someone kills me, taking me for a wicked man, will he not have to answer before God? When he says he was doing the bidding of God, he is only making God an accomplice in a wicked deed. Now, how many times have we seen in the world people killing others in the name of God? Making God an accomplice in a wicked deed. Continues Gandhi. Those who are behind him or whose tool he is should know that this sort of thing will not save Hinduism. Gandhi knows, he is an astute man. He knows that there is a conspiracy to kill him. He suspects it, it's in the air. They should know that this sort of thing will not save Hinduism. If Hinduism has to be saved, it will be saved through such work as I am doing. So Gandhi is a humble man. You heard his reply to the Bengali professor. But when it comes to the crunch, he's prepared to say, if Hinduism is to be saved, it will be saved through the work that I am doing. Having passed all the tests, I am as staunch a Hindu today as intuitively I was at the age of 5 or 6. Do you want to annihilate Hindu dharma by killing a devout Hindu like me? Some Sikhs came to me and asked me if I suspected that a Sikh was implicated. I know he was not a Sikh, but what even if he was? What does it matter if he was a Hindu or a Muslim? May God bless him with good sense. Now, this is the sort of man and the sort of life he lived, which made these remarkable achievements possible. In 1936, going back a little bit, another group of African Americans talked with Gandhi in Western India, And one of them was called Howard Thurman. He was also associated with Howard University in the DC area. And after their long talk, and Gandhi asked many questions about African American situation in the United States, how they were faring, and then how did you survive the period of slavery? How did the African Americans survive the period of slavery? So they told him about the spirituals. And two of them sang the spirituals for Gandhi. And after his discussion with them, this is what Gandhi said in 1936. Well, he said, it may be that the African Americans will teach the world the real meaning of nonviolence. This was in Gandhi's journal at that time in early 36, and Howard Thurman wrote about it when he came back to the United States. So Gandhi somehow, after these interactions, had this sense that nonviolence will be carried forward by African Americans. This was well before Martin Luther King Jr. and well before the great civil rights movement. So I thought I would mention this. And that then brings me to my conclusion. I'm only Rajmohan. I'm not Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. I'm a very weak, ordinary man with lots of frailties and lots of inadequacies. But I have a conviction, just as Gandhi had this conviction in 36. I have a conviction that despite all the travails of America today, the polarization, the division, having seen here in southern Florida this commingling of humanity, I have an absolute conviction that the people of the United States will again teach all of humankind how everybody can come together, respect each other, where needed, forgive each other, where needed, ask forgiveness of each other, and show the way to the world. Thank you. Sure.
Okay. If anyone wants to ask some questions, we can entertain that. Hello?
Thank you so much for the speech that you brought to our university. My name's Sherry Reed. I'm the Savvy Director for the Broward campuses here. And I hope to be a change agent in the future after I graduate and be able to do some good things for the world. What advice would you give me as a person who's experienced kind of the problems of racial inequality? What can I do to keep peace in my heart, even though there's a lot of troubles that we're facing currently in America today?
Well, first of all, thank you for your question. And the very fact that you want to play this role gives me a very great satisfaction. Secondly, I would say, ultimately your own conscience and your own mind will tell you what steps to take.
If you can use the microphone.
Should I get closer
Yes.
there? So where is this freedom? I'm not allowed to walk here and there. Gandhi said, fear not and hate not. Fear not and hate not. And then he added another very important phrase, Frighten not. Don't make others afraid. Fear not, hate not, frighten not. You will be on your way.
Hello, my name's Alex, and yesterday was my birthday, so I'm a Libra like your grandfather. I write for the University Press, and I wanted to ask you in particular about your encounter with Dr. King. I was just curious of the story behind that image and how you met him.
Yeah. So I had only recently arrived in the United States. I was not even 21, and he was 6 years older than me. And I had some friends in the Washington, D.C. area. And they said that Dr. Martin Luther King is going to get an award today. And would you like to come? I said, of course. And so there was this meeting, and he received the award. And then I was asked to go to the stage. There was Martin Luther King Jr., there was Roy Wilkins, and there was me. And I had the privilege of shaking his hand. And a photograph was taken. That's about it. But I did meet thereafter his father, Daddy King. Now, Martin Luther King Jr. was a very quiet, sedate man, a very passive man, except when he made his fiery speeches. But Daddy King, my goodness. In Atlanta, Georgia, I met him. He was fire, passion. And then, of course, by the way, one of the most amazing appraisals of Gandhi offered by Martin Luther King Jr. in March of 1959, Dexter Avenue Baptist Church, Montgomery, Alabama. It's there in the King papers. King's assessment of M.K. Gandhi in his church in March of 1959. Okay, what next?
Other questions?
Yeah.
Thank you. One of the slides that comes up is how many times your grandfather fasted. I was just curious, is there anything that he enjoyed after a fast, eating, or a meal that he would enjoy?
Because he fasted many times, and sometimes he fasted for a long period of time, people thought that fasting was easy for him. But he said again and again, it is always very difficult for me. It's always very difficult for me. And he always asked his wife or those who were with him to help him to stick to his pledge that he was going to fast. I don't know whether he craved particular things. Even when he was not fasting, his food was very restricted. Rightly or wrongly, today I've had several conversations with people, and somebody said, "Do you like the food of my country?" And I said, "Of course." "You like this food?" "Yeah." "What about, have you been to this restaurant?" But, in Gandhi's case, seeking pleasure in food was a low priority for him. Right or wrong? If some people here are great cooks, I think Gandhi might have changed his mind. Sir. Okay, yeah, sure. Yeah, students must get preference.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. I'm Mariana Donovan, and I just have a question. If Mohandas Gandhi wasn't assassinated, what do you think he would have continued working on?
Well, he would have been a very, very, very old man by now. He was assassinated at the age of 78 in 1948. So he might not quite have made it up till today. Sorry? So that's my wife who always coaches me on what to say. So his plan was to visit Pakistan and promote reconciliation and friendship between Pakistan and India. So if he had not been killed, he would have gone there. We don't know whether he would have succeeded, because sometimes these mistrusts are very deep and not so easy even for incredible individuals to resolve. But he would have made that attempt. And you know, many wonderful things have happened in India, by the way, after independence. Many absolutely wonderful things have happened. India has made progress on many fronts. But there are some things where we still have to do a lot better. So during the British time, those who worked for the government regarded themselves as the rulers, and the citizens were the servants of the rulers. So whenever a citizen met any official of the government, civil or military, the citizen was very nervous and afraid. And the government officer was the boss, was the master. To a large extent, that continues today. If Gandhi had been alive, he would have equalized the Indian people with the government and taught the government that they are the servants and the people are the boss. There's a hand there. Sir.
Thank you. My name is Raj. First of all, I'd like to thank on behalf of the South Florida community for giving us such a pleasant speech and inspiration. The book of your title, Why Gandhi Still Matters. So, in other words, if we ask the same question what the young lady asked, what would Gandhi would have done in the present situation when there is a fights all over? I mean, there is a terrorist going on. 9/11 happened. And whatever the fights are going on between India and Pakistan.
So the very fact that the fights are going on shows that Gandhi is needed. Okay? So we can agree with that. That because, as I said, the world was becoming global, it has become tribal. So we need the spirit of Gandhi and Martin Luther King and the others I have mentioned so that we can come together again. How to do it, as she asked, I would again say for each of us, fear not, hate not, frighten not. And work together as a team. Encourage each other. When anybody does something good, support it. When somebody does something wrong, oppose it. Oppose it in a dignified way, in a non-violent way, in an earnest way. So it is so mind you, I'm a student of history. So many changes take place in history. So this toxicity in the air today will go at some point. It'll not be there for all time. Absolutely not. And the longing that people have of teamwork and fraternity, brotherhood and sisterhood among all the races, among all the religious groups, among all the ethnic groups, that dream will be realized. Absolutely. So we have to hate not, fear not, frighten not, and we have to keep that faith alive in our heart.
Thank you so much for being here. I've learned a lot in your lecture. So I'm going to make a comment and then I'm going to ask a question. So obviously what's happening in our country and other countries as well be a lack of love. And you mentioned hate, and how do we, well, it kind of seems like we can't eliminate hate because there will always be people who will hate. But I guess our duty is to always show love in spite of the hate. Would you say that's correct?
Amen.
Okay. So, in light of everything that's going on in our country right now, and that hate seems to be so prominent, what's the message that Gandhi would have for us today? And specifically, what message do you think he would have to Donald Trump? And no offense to any Donald Trump supporters. But what do you think that message would be?
Thank you for your comment and for your question. By the way, I forget when it was, the date when not Charlottesville, that other killing, Charlotte, was it? Yes. Yeah, where in the church people were killed. And after that, when the killer went to meet the relatives of the killed, the relatives said to him, even before he asked for forgiveness, that they forgave him. I mean, I saw this on television. To me, it was one of the most amazing moments of my life. If America has that kind of greatness in it, we must be absolutely sure of a new day coming. But in addition to that, we must, of course, stand up to what is wrong, absolutely fearlessly. And we must express our disapproval and our disagreement absolutely clearly and fearlessly.
All right, this is the last question.
Well, thank you very much for being here, and I am truly reassured by your conviction, and I'm so grateful that I had the chance to hear you, and I can also say that we are very grateful for this, for your time and for your speech. I often find myself ponder about human emotions, and I believe that Gandhi was not an impulsive man. He was always able to preserve his calmness, and he was mindful that he was not reacting on the pure emotions, although we're not supposed to stifle our emotions. We have to truly feel them, although where is this balance between expressing yourself still truly and not stifling your emotions? And I can agree, I have the conviction, as you said, and I'm not just saying that it's the United States, it's the whole world. It's going to change. And I am going to be part of the change, and I believe most of us will join me and unite. There's going to be a religion, I believe, hopefully, which is going to unite as us together as humans and not separate humanity. Thank you.
So I think you've made some very apt and I think valid and important comments. I appreciate those. So when Gandhi was often asked himself how he dealt with anger, with rage, with hatred, he often gave his answers. And first he said he tries to be a witness to himself. What is happening inside of me? He tries to be a witness to what is happening to him. Sorry? Mindful, all right. But the word he used, we may use, so you detach yourself from yourself and look at yourself. And you be a witness to what is happening to you. And then, for instance, if he felt that the Viceroy of India, the British ruler of India, did something wrong, and Gandhi felt very angry about it, he would compose himself, but he would then write very frankly to this person. He would try to remove all personal anger or bitterness, write very frankly. So the anger in him, instead of becoming hatred, it became electricity. And as how he got, after that massacre, the people even to acknowledge the mistakes that the Indian side had made in relation to the British. So he was always willing to objectively assess what the other side was doing, the adversary was doing, what his own side was doing, and then to fight as passionately as he could without hatred.
All right, that's all we have time for. Please thank Dr. Thank you all for coming.